In the late autumn of 1880, the people of Ozark Township lived quiet, rugged lives between the mist-covered hills of Missouri. Their town was small: wooden homes, a church, a general store, and a single schoolhouse that stood on the edge of the forest known as Whispering Woods. It was said that when the wind blew through those trees, it carried voices. Some swore they heard laughter. Others claimed it was crying. But the strangest thing was that the townspeople couldn't remember how many children the school once had. Some names on the attendance list were smudged. Others simply stopped appearing. One by one, children had gone missing, without a trace. And though years passed, the fear never did. That's when Miss Clara Whitmore arrived. Clara stepped off the stagecoach one cool morning, her blue dress dusted from travel, her leather suitcase clutched tight. She was 26, bright-eyed, and full of purpose, a teacher sent by the state to bring learning and light to the forgotten corners of Missouri. The townsfolk watched her from their porches as she walked toward the inn. They didn't greet her. They just stared. "Morning, ma'am," the blacksmith muttered, lowering his hammer. "You heading to the Hollow?" "Yes," she said cheerfully. "Maple Hollow School. I start Monday." He wiped his hands, frowning. "You won't last a month out there." Clara blinked. "And why's that?" He hesitated. "Ask the Woods." That night, as Clara lay in her small rented room, she heard the wind outside. It brushed against the window like fingertips, and faintly, so faintly, came the sound of children laughing. Monday morning, Clara walked through a thin veil of fog toward the schoolhouse. It was small: 2 rooms, white paint peeling from the walls, an old brass bell hanging crookedly above the door. Inside, 10 children sat in neat rows. Their eyes followed her silently. They were polite, but their faces held something older than their years. "Good morning, class," she said warmly. "I'm Miss Whitmore. I hope we'll learn much together." The youngest, a girl with golden braids named Anna Turner, offered a shy smile. Her older brother Eli, tall and solemn, said softly, "We'll be good, ma'am." Clara laughed lightly. "I never doubted that." But when recess came, she noticed something strange. The children played only near the fence, never beyond it. They avoided the trees like a living wall. "Why not play deeper in the woods?" she asked, curious. Eli's eyes flickered toward the dark forest. "Because that's where they take us, miss." A week later, Clara began to feel a sense of belonging. The children liked her, and even the parents had grown to nod politely when she passed through town. Then, one crisp afternoon, Martha Bell, a sweet 7-year-old with red ribbons in her hair, didn't show up for class. Her father burst into the schoolhouse later that morning, pale and shaking. "Miss Whitmore, have you seen her? Martha went to pick flowers behind the school yesterday. She never came home." Clara froze. "No. She left after class. I watched her go." The sheriff organized a search party. They combed the woods with lanterns and dogs. By dusk, they found nothing. No footprints, no torn fabric, no flowers. Just one tiny handprint pressed into the soft mud near the creek. Too small to be an adult's, too clear to be a coincidence. The town fell into uneasy silence that night. The next morning, only half the children came to class. Their parents whispered at the door, eyes darting toward the woods. Clara did her best to keep the day normal, reading lessons, arithmetic, but the children were restless. When she asked Anna to recite a poem, the little girl hesitated. "I can't, miss," she whispered. "She's listening." Clara frowned. "Who, dear?" "The lady in the woods." That evening, Clara stayed behind to mark papers by lamplight. The wind outside picked up, and the trees moaned. Then she heard it, soft humming, almost like a lullaby. She stepped to the doorway, peering into the darkness. The sound came from the forest. "Hello?" she called. The humming stopped. When she turned back, her chalkboard, where she'd written tomorrow's lesson, was wiped completely clean. Desperate for answers, Clara went to the town innkeeper, Mrs. Harper, an elderly woman with kind eyes and a lifetime of secrets. "Tell me about the disappearances," Clara said, her voice low. "Please," Mrs. Harper sighed. "It started long before your time, dear. Long before mine." She poured tea, her hands trembling slightly. "They say there was once a woman named Eliza Granger, a widow who lived by the forest. Her husband and son died of fever, and she lost her wits from grief. Some say she wandered into the woods, calling out to children, wanting to take them to replace her own." Clara shivered. "A ghost story." Mrs. Harper met her gaze. "Call it what you like. But every 20 years, the children start vanishing again. And it's been 20 years since the last." The next morning, Clara arrived early. The ground was damp from rain. As she walked toward the schoolhouse, she froze. Small, bare footprints trailed from the door to the edge of the forest. 10 of them, side by side. Her heart thudded. The children hadn't arrived yet. She knelt down and touched the prints. They were real, pressed deep into the mud. At recess, Clara watched Eli standing near the trees. He seemed to be listening. "Eli," she called softly, "what are you hearing?" He looked at her with haunted eyes. "She calls us at night, miss. If we answer, we don't come back." Clara crouched beside him. "Who?" He pointed toward the forest. "The lady in the white shawl." That afternoon, a loose board creaked under Clara's feet as she straightened. The classroom shelves. She knelt and pried it open. Inside was a small leather-bound book coated in dust. It was a teacher's journal. The name inside read, "Miss Abigail Reed, 1860. Clara sat at her desk and began to read. "The children say the lady comes when the moon hides. They hear her voice, sweet as honey, promising warmth and play. I don't believe in ghosts, yet I hear her too, softly, beyond the walls." Another entry, dated a week later, chilled her to the bone. 3 children gone, no tracks, no cries, only laughter carried by the wind. The last page ended abruptly. "Tonight, she calls my name." The ink trailed off, the page torn. Clara dropped the journal. The room suddenly felt colder. 3 days later, the unthinkable happened again. It was during the spelling lesson. Clara turned to write the word courage on the board. When she turned back, Anna Turner's seat was empty. Her slate lay on the desk. She had written only one word, home. "Anna?" Clara's voice broke. "Anna, this isn't funny." The other students began crying. Eli stood motionless, staring at the open window. "She's gone," he whispered. Clara ran outside, calling Anna's name into the trees until her throat burned. The woods seemed to swallow her voice whole. Then came the wind, a low, haunting moan, and in it, Clara thought she heard a child's laughter. That night, she wept at her desk, gripping the torn journal in her hands. By morning, the town was in an uproar. Mothers clutched their children, fathers demanded answers, and the sheriff, Thomas Callan, rode up to the schoolhouse before dawn. "You'll close this place at once," he barked. "You were supposed to keep them safe." Clara stood her ground. "Sheriff, I swear to you, I saw no one, heard nothing until she was gone." "Then you weren't looking hard enough." The blacksmith stepped forward. "I told you this would happen. That school's cursed." Clara's hands trembled, but she refused to back down. "You think closing the school will save your children? The forest won't stop until we understand what's happening." But her words fell on deaf ears. Parents began pulling their children from the school, whispering that Miss Whitmore had brought the curse with her. By sunset, The schoolhouse stood empty, the desks silent, the chalkboard untouched. As Clara locked the door and walked away, the wind stirred again, soft and low, almost like a voice calling her name. Clara! She turned sharply, but no one was there. Only the trees, watching. The night after the school closed, Clara sat alone in her small rented room at the inn. Her mind refused to rest. Anna's empty desk haunted her. Martha's laughter echoed in her dreams. She lit a lantern and stared out the window. The forest loomed beyond the hill, quiet and endless. The townsfolk might have turned their backs, but she couldn't. Clara grabbed her shawl, her notebook, and stepped out into the cold. The moon hung low, casting silver threads through the fog. The deeper she went, the quieter the world became. Even the crickets stopped singing. Then she heard it, a soft humming, a lullaby, the same tune she'd heard that night in the schoolhouse. Clara raised her lantern. Between the trees, faint figures moved, children, pale and silent, their faces familiar, Martha, Anna, and others she didn't recognize. "Children," she whispered, tears filling her eyes. "It's Miss Whitmore." They turned to her, their eyes empty as winter skies, and behind them stood a woman draped in a white shawl. Her face was calm, almost kind, but her presence made the air heavy, thick with sorrow. "Who are you?" Clara demanded. The woman's voice drifted like smoke. "You know me already. They call me the Widow of the Woods." Clara took a trembling step forward. "Why do you take them? Why the children?" The lady tilted her head. "Because their hearts are pure. They hear me when others do not. The world outside forgets them, lets them starve, fall ill, fade. But I keep them safe. Forever." "Safe?" Clara's voice cracked. "They're dead." The lady's expression softened, almost pitying. "Death is only cruel when one is unloved. Here, they are never alone." Clara's lantern flickered. "They have parents, families who love them. You've stolen their lives." The lady sighed. "As mine was stolen. When fever took my child, I begged heaven for mercy. No one came, so I became mercy myself." Her gaze fell on the children, standing still like carved angels. "Let them go," Clara pleaded. "Let them live." The lady's voice darkened. "Then who will keep me company in these woods?" Clara's breath caught. "Take me instead." The forest grew still. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. "You would give your life for them?" the lady asked, eyes glimmering. Clara nodded. "They deserve to grow up, to laugh again, to live." The lady stepped closer, her shawl brushing against the lantern's flame. For a moment, her face looked young, like that of a teacher, not a ghost. "You remind me of myself," she whispered, "so full of faith, so willing to carry others' burdens." She raised a hand. "Very well, Clara Whitmore. At dawn, the children shall return. But when the sun rises, you must stay." Clara swallowed hard. "If that's the price, I'll pay it." The lady's expression softened into something almost tender. A teacher's heart is a powerful thing. It can break curses, or become one. The last thing Clara remembered was the soft touch of the lady's hand on her cheek, and the forest fading into golden light. At sunrise, the townspeople awoke to shouts near the woods. Children, pale, trembling but alive, were stumbling out from between the trees. Martha Bell, Anna, Turner, others who'd been gone for weeks. Their parents rushed forward, weeping and clutching them to their chests. "It's a miracle," cried the pastor. But when the sheriff asked the children what happened, they all said the same thing. "A lady sang to us. Then Miss Whitmore told us to go home." The sheriff frowned. "Where is she?" No one knew. Later that day, they found Clara's lantern by the creek, still burning, its glass unbroken, though the wick had burned to ash. A week passed before Mrs. Harper received a small envelope, left at her doorstep with no footprints around it. Inside was a single page in Clara's elegant handwriting. "Dear Mrs. Harper, do not grieve for me. The lady was never cruel, only lonely. The children she took were never meant to vanish, only to be remembered. Tell the townsfolk to stop fearing what they don't understand. And tell Eli, keep learning, teach kindness. That is how you end the curse. With love, Clara." Folded inside the letter was a pressed, white wildflower, the same kind Martha Bell had picked before she disappeared. Mrs. Harper wept, clutching the note to her chest. Months passed, and slowly, life in Ozark Township returned to normal. The parents, guilt-ridden and grateful, repaired the old schoolhouse. The bell rang once more, its echo rolling through the hills like forgiveness. But some mornings, the new teacher found odd things, chalk words on the board she hadn't written. "Be kind. Listen. They are watching." When a child cried, they swore a gentle hand rested on their shoulder. A faint scent of lilies lingered in the air, the same scent that once clung to Clara's dress. Mrs. Harper told them softly, "She's still here. Miss Whitmore never left." Years later, Eli Turner, now a grown man, returned to Ozark Township. He had become a teacher himself, tall, gentle, with the same serious eyes. When he entered the schoolhouse, dust motes floated in the sunlight. The desks were smaller than he remembered. On the blackboard, faint words began to appear in chalk, as if written by an invisible hand. "Welcome home, Eli." His eyes filled with tears. He whispered, "Thank you, Miss Whitmore." And for just a moment, the air shimmered with warmth, like sunlight breaking through clouds. One evening, Eli went through the town's old records, determined to learn the truth about the lady in the white shawl. After weeks of searching, he found a forgotten document in the courthouse basement, a burial record from 1839. Eliza Granger, schoolteacher, age 29, cause of death, fever, buried with several children she had nursed during the epidemic. Eli's hands shook. The Lady of the Woods wasn't a monster. She was the first teacher, a woman who had stayed when others fled, who had lost her life trying to save her students. The curse, Eli realized, had never been one of evil. It was one of love, twisted by grief, and Clara Whitmore had freed her by understanding her pain. The following spring, Eli gathered the townsfolk and built a small stone monument beside the schoolhouse. It read, "In memory of Miss Clara Whitmore and Miss Eliza Granger, who loved and protected the children of Ozark Township." On the day it was unveiled, the sky was bright, but a gentle wind stirred the grass. Some said they heard two women's voices, soft, laughing, like a lullaby carried through the trees. The children who attended the ceremony said they saw two figures at the forest's edge, hand in hand, watching proudly. Then they vanished into the sunlight. Decades passed. The world changed. Horses gave way to cars, letters to telephones. But Maple Hollow School still stood. The walls were rebuilt, the floors polished, but the old brass bell still hung above the door. Every generation of children who studied there knew the story of Miss Whitmore, the teacher who gave her life to save her students. Some afternoons, when the sun dipped low and light poured through the windows, students would whisper that they saw a woman in an old blue dress standing by the blackboard, smiling. When asked what she looked like, they always said the same thing. "She looks like someone who believes in us." And though the forest still whispered, no child ever vanished again. Because love, true love, the kind that teaches and protects, never dies. It only changes form, passing from one heart to another,